Welcome to 7 Billion Geniuses. I'm Dr. Joel Glenn Wixson, and in this video I'm going to be talking about transforming anger. Anger is something that's present, I think, all over the world right now, and it's something that can turn into action depending on how we act on it, and sometimes those actions can be very destructive. This is a way to address anger and transform it into something that's not only productive, but it's ultimately a manifestation of the genius that exists in you and the genius that exists in everybody. What I'm going to walk you through in this video, probably over a couple of videos, is a process that I'm going to actually go through as I'm making this video to lay out something that anybody could take up to turn anger from something that's a reaction to things that are going on in our lives into something that's a manifestation of your genius, your originality, what makes you the extraordinarily important person that you are, an important person in the process of turning this world into something that's inclusive, that's accepting, and that's a manifestation of everything that we can possibly be. And so that's something that I'm strongly committed to. The most important thing to hold up in the context of this idea that I'm going to share with you right now, the very most fundamental piece, is curiosity, genuine curiosity. To be curious about the words that you use, the things that you express, the things that you say. And that might sound crazy. How could you possibly not understand what you mean by the words that you use? But I'll tell you quite genuinely from my own experience, when I ask myself the questions that I'm going to propose in this video, I learn things about what I mean that I didn't know before. And it changes and shapes ultimately what I then do. So genuine curiosity is the most important fundamental piece about all this. So anger seems very straightforward, seems very obvious, but it's not. It's complicated, it's complex, and it's ultimately, as I've said, it's a manifestation of what makes you the person that you are, which is unique and different than anybody who has ever been and anyone that will ever be. As I say the words that I'm going to say, and I'm actually not even sure what these words are, which is part of the process. Genuine curiosity requires that you go into territories that are not known. I don't know what territory I'm going to go into in this process, so I'm going to take notes. These notes create a map. It's a different kind of map. We've sort of been indoctrinated into this culture into thinking about maps as things that get us from point A to point B, and generally negate what is in the territory between point A and point B. They create sort of straight lines, the shortest possible route, the most efficient way to get from one place to another, without considering the possibility that really the beauty of a map is that it contains the entirety of the territory and all the possibilities that exist from where you are to where you hope you might get at some point. And the reason why I'm going to write down the words that I use is because I want to remember what they are. If you're an outdoor person or if you're familiar with being outside, you'll know that the back trail is almost as important, and in terms of getting back to your car, more important than the forward trail. That being aware of where you've come from as you've gone along the way is a great way to know how to get back to where you began. And so I'm going to write down the words that I use so I can remember what those were as I expand this kind of territory of understanding that I'm going to get from talking about what I mean by anger. So curiosity is fundamental. Genuine curiosity, the willingness to be genuinely curious. Now sometimes when we're angry, the last thing that we can take up is a position of curiosity in relation to the events or the person that's making us angry. That's why I'm doing this with myself. I don't have to take up some kind of different position in relation to somebody else that I might be angry at. I'm talking about my own experience of anger. Now this process is something that you can use with other people, but But for now, I'm talking about something that I'm going to do in exploring my own kind of understanding of anger. So the first question is going to sound crazy, but it's an extraordinarily important question. I realize I kind of already said it, but I'm going to say it again clearly. So the first question that I'm going to ask myself is, what do I mean by anger? I tell this to people all the time. I'm going to ask you what you mean by happy. I'm going to ask you what you mean by crazy. I'm going to ask you what you mean by sad, because I don't want to make those assumptions with anybody who I speak to that I understand what they mean by those words. Similarly, I don't want to make the assumption that I even understand what I mean by that word. So I'm going to ask myself, what do I mean by angry? And so I'm sitting here right now thinking, there's a thing that I say a lot that comes to mind. For me, generally, anger is about me wanting things to be other than they are. So then maybe anger is about frustration. So I'm going to write down frustration and sadness. And so then I'm curious about frustration. What do I mean by frustration? I'm thinking frustration for me is about trying to do something that I can't do. And so I'm going to write that down. Now, trying to do something that I can't do, there's a lot in that statement that I could pull out. Trying to do something that I can't do stands out, and so I'm going to be curious with myself about which one of those I want to pick up on. And I'm actually, for the purposes of this video right now, I'm going to pick up on the idea of something that I can't do and get curious with myself about why I said that. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I can't do, I'm like, okay, so if there's something that I can't do, is there something about this frustration that I actually can do? And what would that be? Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a second. Now you see that from the idea of anger, it's already transformed. This is one of the most important things that will always happen. The idea of anger has now been transformed from that into frustration and sadness, and then into this statement about trying to do something that I can't do. And now I'm curious about whether there's another possibility about what I can do. This speaks to another fundamental idea in this process, which was called by Michael White the absent but implicit. In this frustration, in this sadness, is implied not only the frustration and the sadness, but also stuff that I know about what I want. There's the things that I can't do, but it also speaks to things that I would want to have happen. Those two things exist at the same time, and it's not that it's subconscious, it's not that it's something that I don't know or exists somewhere in the recesses of some consciousness thing. It's more about something that I haven't explored in a while, something that maybe I've forgotten, something that maybe I need to remember, and this process allows me to illuminate it. So if you think about the image of a flashlight, when you shine a flashlight on any number of things, you're not creating those things, you're simply illuminating those things. They're already there. So those are some fundamental ideas. We've got the idea of genuine curiosity, the idea of the absent but implicit, and then this notion of asking the question, what do you mean by that? So frustration, what do you mean by that? Gets me to trying to do something that I can't do, and then that I can't do got me curious about what I meant by that. And so if I think about, let's go with that. Let's go back to what I mean by something that I can't do. And I'm thinking primarily in these times, there are changes that I'd like to make. There are changes that I'd like to make really for me that speak to the importance of people being who they are, and the importance of the expression of people's uniqueness and individuality in times like this, where we can so easily get drawn into ideas that there are things that we're supposed to do and people who are supposed to be, things that other people are supposed to do and supposed to be, and removes us from the ideas that our uniqueness and originality is extraordinarily important. so what can I do to actually create those changes? What can I do to put out there a notion that who we are is extraordinarily important? And obviously that gets back to the ultimate mission of 7 billion geniuses. So we have the notion of curiosity, we have the notion of the absent but implicit, and we have this first question: what do you mean by that? So I'm talking about upholding individuals' uniqueness and the importance of that. I'm writing down importance of uniqueness. And the next big question, which is also going to seem like a crazy question, but it's an extraordinarily important question, and again, it needs to be asked within the context of genuine curiosity. Why? I'm going to ask myself why. Why is the importance of uniqueness something that I would be frustrated by not being able to do? Why is upholding the importance of other people's uniqueness something that I would be frustrated by not being able to do? I'm hoping that you can see how we've gotten into a territory that's specifically about who I am and what I stand for. And this is not to suggest that anybody else should get into this territory. This is simply to suggest that very simple ideas like genuine curiosity, asking people what they mean by the words that they use, and then asking them why, once they start to get to some kind of purposes that are manifest in those words that they use, in the meanings of those words that they use, gets us into a place where we're starting to describe stuff that's no longer about anger. It's now about what we stand for, what matters to us, those things that we uphold, those things that we hold most dear. And once we've transformed anger into something that can simply be reactive or aggressive, into something that's about purposes and causes, we've changed what it means. We've changed what anger means. I'm going to leave it here for now, and I'll come back to this next week. And I hope this is a beginning point for people. And it's certainly something that anybody could take up, to start simply by asking themselves from a position of genuine curiosity what they mean by anger. If they want to talk about anger or frustration or sadness, whatever the word is, what they mean by that. Allow themselves to kind of delve into that meaning piece. What do they actually mean by that word? And take that, what do you mean by that question, a couple of steps further. And then once you start to get into purposes, start to ask why those purposes are important to you. There's a number of questions that I'm actually going to share on my blog that you can use once you get to the why question. Things about what people who love you and care about you, why they would not be surprised that that's something that you stand for. What they say it says about you that you stand for those things. Those sorts of questions that can help you then expand this stuff further. And to transform anger into something that's about what matters to us, what we stand for and what we can do, as opposed to something that we can't do. Thanks for watching 7 Billion Geniuses. Check me out on Facebook. Please subscribe. I'll have my phone number and email address attached at the end of this video so you can be in touch. Please stay in touch. Please be in touch with me. Again, I'm Dr. Joel Glenn Wixson, and I'll see you again.